My parents' house greeted me with the same scent it always did, a mixture of tangerines, pine needles, and something too sweet, like memories that had long since gone sour. Snow was falling slowly outside. The garlands on the porch flickered unevenly, and I could already feel the tension inside, even though there was still an hour until dinner. My name was Alina. I was 29, and every time I returned to my parents' house outside Moscow, it was as if an old script was playing itself out inside, one in which my role had long been written, the unsuccessful one, always not up to par, always not quite right. "Are you wearing black again?" was my mother's first comment as soon as I took off my jacket. "You should at least wear something more cheerful for the holiday." I smiled reservedly and walked into the living room. My father was already there, glued to his phone, and my younger sister, Veronica, with her legs crossed, her hair perfectly styled, and an expression of calm confidence on her face. That same confidence that, in her case, people mistook for maturity, and in mine for arrogance. "Alina's here," Mom said, as if she were announcing the weather. Veronica looked up and smiled warmly. Too warmly. "Well, finally," she said. "We thought you'd change your mind." I remained silent. Over the past 6 months, I'd often considered not coming. Since July, I'd been sending my parents money, every month, without reminders, without thanks. Dad had been having trouble with his job, the utilities had gone up, and Mom was worried. I simply decided to help. Silently. Like a grown-up. And, as it turned out later, in vain. "By the way," Mom suddenly said, passing by with napkins, "it's good that we have Veronica. Not every child would help their parents like that." I froze. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to speak calmly. "What do you mean?" Mom asked, surprised. "She transfers us money every month. We couldn't cope without her." The room seemed to narrow. I looked at Veronica. She looked down for a second, then shrugged. "Mom, come on," she said softly. "Don't talk about that." Something clicked unpleasantly inside me. "Wait," I said slowly. "What money?" Dad looked up from the phone. "Well, the same. Since the summer. Veronica helps as much as she can. She's a responsible girl." I felt my face begin to heat up. That. I swallowed. I was the one transferring the money. There was silence. A real, heavy silence. Mom laughed, briefly, nervously. "Alina, why are you starting?" she said. "What's the point now?" "Because it's true," I replied. "I've been transferring money to you since July. Every month." Veronica straightened up slowly. "Alina," she said reproachfully, "now is not the time for such conversations." "When is not the time?" My voice trembled. "When you all think I do nothing for you?" "Don't play the victim," Mom snapped. Veronica never lied. Unlike some people. These words hit harder than I expected. "I'm not lying," I said quietly. "And I can prove it." "Oh, don't start." Dad waved her hand dismissively. "We're celebrating. If you're so concerned about attention, you picked a bad time." I looked at them, the people for whom I'd saved money, given up trips, and stayed late at work. I looked at my sister, who sat calmly, as if none of this mattered to her. "So, you don't even want to ask?" I asked. "Don't want to see?" Veronica finally looked up at me. Something cold flashed in her eyes. "Do you really think we'll believe you?" she asked. "After everything?" That "after everything" hung between us, though no one had explained what exactly it meant. I realized this evening was just beginning, and it would be completely different from what I'd hoped. After that sentence, the evening seemed to fall apart at the seams. Everything seemed to be in place. The Christmas tree continued to twinkle, the smell of roasting meat wafted from the kitchen, the snow continued to slowly fall outside, but inside the house it had grown cold. Not physically, but the way it happens when you're no longer considered one of their own. I went into what had once been the children's room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. Old photos still hung on the wall, me with my bangs disheveled, Veronica neat and smiling. Even as children, we looked like we were playing different roles in the same play. The phone shook in my hand. I opened the banking app, and almost immediately the screen froze. A white window appeared, then a message about maintenance. I tried again. And again. Nothing. Wonderful. I breathed out, feeling panic rising inside. There was a knock on the door. "Alina," my mother's voice was tense. "Come out. Don't make a scene." I went out. Aunt Sveta, my mother's sister, and my cousin Lena were already sitting in the living room. They exchanged glances, clearly sensing that something was wrong. "What's going on here?" Auntie asked cautiously. Veronica sighed and shook her head, as if embarrassed for me. "Oh, just—" Alina thought she was helping her parents, she said almost tenderly. "She got it all a bit mixed up." "I didn't get anything mixed up," I said. "I really am transferring money." "Then show me," Dad said sharply. "Once and for all." I held out my phone. "The app isn't working. Lots of people are having problems right now." Veronica immediately chuckled. "How convenient," she said. "When you need to prove something, something always breaks." "Are you serious?" I looked at her. "You know it's true." She leaned toward me and lowered her voice. "Alina, stop. You're making a fool of yourself." Mom threw up her hands. "Exactly," she said. "You're always like this. Always making excuses." "But Veronica really did help us, we saw that." "See what?" I couldn't resist. "Have you ever seen proof? A statement? A message?" Father slammed his palm on the table in irritation. "Enough," he barked. "I'm tired of this squabble. If you can't prove your words, apologize to your sister." The silence became deafening. Even Aunt Sveta lowered her eyes. "Apologize," I repeated. "For what?" "For lying," my father replied coldly. "And for ruining everyone's holiday." I felt something inside me break completely. "I won't apologize for telling the truth," I said. "Even if you don't believe me." "Then you better leave," he said, not looking at me. "We don't need this circus." Veronica was silent. And there was more confession in that silence than in any words. I slowly put on my jacket. No one stopped me. No one said, "Wait." Only my mother called after me. "Think about your behavior, Alina." The door slammed behind me too loudly. It was freezing outside. The air burned my lungs. I walked to the car almost automatically, tears blurring my vision. I didn't leave right away. I just sat behind the wheel, looking at the glowing windows of the house where they'd just made it clear. They don't believe me. And maybe they never did. My phone vibrated. A message from Lena. "I don't know who's right, but you seemed so sincere. If anything happens, text me." It wasn't much, but at least someone doubted it. I started the car and drove into the night, not knowing where I'd end up in an hour. I knew only one thing. I wouldn't return empty-handed and with my dignity broken. If the truth exists, I'll find it. And I'll show it to everyone. I spent the night at a friend's house. I'd known Marina since university. She was the kind of person who would pour you tea first, cover you with a blanket, and only ask questions later. That was exactly what I needed. "You don't have to explain anything," she said as I stepped through the door. "You have the face of someone who hasn't been heard from in a long time." I finally told her. About the money, about Veronica, about how my father pointed to the door. With each word, I felt either relief or pain inside. I couldn't tell right away. "You know," Marina said slowly when I finished, "the worst thing isn't even the money. It's that you weren't given the chance to be right in the first place." I didn't answer, because she hit the nail on the head. I woke up early that morning. The room was quiet, the winter sky gray outside the window. The first thing I did was pick up my phone. The banking app still wasn't working. The same message. The same words about temporary difficulties. I wanted to throw the phone at the wall. I sat on the edge of the bed and covered my face with my hands. "What should I do?" I whispered. "How can I prove the truth if everything is against me?" And then I remembered. The letters. Every transfer, every month, I received a confirmation in my email. I never deleted them, just archived them. Back then, it seemed unimportant. Now, it's become my only salvation. My heart started beating faster. I opened my email and searched for the bank's name. And they appeared, one after another. July, August, September, October, November, December. Amounts, dates, my parents' account numbers. I stared at the screen and felt tears welling up in my eyes, but different ones. Not from helplessness. From relief.
"Marina,"
I shouted. She came out of the kitchen with a mug in her hands. "What happened?" I handed her the phone.
"Here."
"It's all here. It's me. It's always been me." She read it carefully, then looked up at me. "Now you have a choice," she said. "Either you just know the truth for yourself, or you go and say it out loud." I knew the answer right away. I arrived at my parents' house late in the evening. Relatives' cars were parked in the yard, meaning everyone was there. My heart was pounding, my palms were sweating, but inside I felt a strange calm. I no longer doubted myself. My mother opened the door. Seeing me, she tensed. "Why did you come?" "I didn't come to argue," I said calmly. "I came to finish our conversation." The living room was noisy. The conversation died down when I entered. Veronica was sitting on the couch, laughing about something, and froze when she saw me. "Alina," she drawled. "But you left." "I left without proof," I replied. "And I came back with it." I didn't look at her. I looked at my parents. "I'm not asking for an apology. I'm asking you to look." I showed them the letters. Slowly, clearly, without hysteria. My father frowned at first, then began to scroll more carefully. My mother turned pale. "This," she whispered. "This is our account." Veronica stood up abruptly. "This doesn't prove anything," she said too quickly. "You could fake something like that these days." "Then let's move on," I said. "We'll check at the ATM. They don't need attachments, just the facts." The room became very quiet. Father nodded slowly. "Let's go." Veronica was silent. And in that silence there was more fear than in any excuses. I put on my coat, feeling everything inside me freeze in anticipation. The truth was already close. All that remained was to let it be revealed. The ATM was empty. The frost stung my face, my breath turned into steam, and the silence around me seemed unreal, too tense for an ordinary winter evening. Father inserted the card, slowly pressing the buttons, as if he was stalling for time. Mother stood next to him, her hands clasped in her coat pockets. Veronica stayed a little further away, engrossed in her phone, but I could see her fingers trembling. "Transaction history," Father mumbled. The screen lit up. He scrolled down. "July, August, September. Open the details," Mother said quietly. He pressed the button. The sender's account number appeared. "Meaning?" Father froze. Then he opened the next month. Then another. He checked again and again, as if hoping that somewhere there would be a mistake, a glitch, anything that would allow him not to acknowledge the obvious. "All the transfers," he said hoarsely. "All from Alina." Mother covered her mouth with her hand. Her eyes filled with tears. "My God," she whispered. "And we?" Veronica sharply stepped forward. "So what?" She blurted out. "I didn't say it was me. You decided that yourselves." I slowly turned to her. "You were silent when they thanked you," I said. "You showed fake confirmations. You let me look like a liar. Her voice broke. "I'm used to being praised. And you yourself said you didn't want extra attention." "I said I didn't want praise," I replied calmly. "But I didn't give you the right to take away my name and my truth." We returned in silence. The house was quiet. Almost all the guests had already left. Only the garland on the Christmas tree was lit in the living room, blinking slowly, as if tired. My father was the first to break the silence. "Alina," he said, sinking heavily into an armchair. "We were unfair. We believed not the facts, but the convenient version." "Because it's more convenient," I added. "Because I'm always difficult, and Veronica is reliable." My mother came up to me and gently took my hand. "Forgive us," she said through tears. "We haven't listened to you for so many years, and we didn't even notice how that became the norm." I nodded. The words were important, but inside it still hurt. Some wounds don't close immediately, even when the truth comes out. Veronica stood by the door, pale, her lips pressed together. "I didn't think things would turn out this way," she said softly. "I didn't want to destroy you." "But you did," I replied. "And now I need time. Not for you, for myself." She said nothing. She simply put on her coat and left, carefully closing the door behind her. Without a slam, without a scene, the three of us remained. There was no joy, no celebration. There was only a strange, heavy relief, like after a long illness, when the fever has subsided, but the weakness hasn't yet gone away. You can stay, my father said, if you want to. I looked at the Christmas tree, at the familiar walls, at the people I loved, despite everything. Not today, I said. But this isn't forever. I went outside. The snow was still falling, softly and calmly, as if nothing had happened. I breathed in the cold air and, for the first time in a long time, felt not shame or anger, but a quiet confidence. The truth had been spoken, and I wasn't going to let anyone make me invisible anymore.